Okay, and we're live. Greetings and welcome to my channel. I did one silly thing that if I can fix, I will. There we are. Didn't mean to turn on slow mode. Okay, so greetings, welcome to my channel. Sound is working this time. Here we are. So, today we're talking about the never-ending story, and we are talking about, hey Johnston, good to see you. We had a bit of a false start there, but we're on now. See, my beard needs weaving. It's a bit slow to get on today. And then we had a microphone issue, which I have solved now. Good evening, Romstead. Good to see you. We have the mic issues solved now. I don't know who all made it on for the last one, but yeah, we made it. We're here. Okay, so we're talking today about the never-ending story. I haven't actually shared it anywhere on Facebook just yet, so we're gonna do that real quick. I'm gonna do that real quick while we're talking here. And yeah, like I said, we are talking about the Gnomics, the Three Gates, and the Voice of Silence today. And these all are about, well, achieving Gnosis or enlightenment. This is the part of the book where he's finally getting through that barrier. We're just about to the part where the movie ended, right? So, oh, whoops. No, not share screen. There we go. I need this little link here and put that over here. Share that on Facebook so that we can get people from over there coming. Luckily, I hadn't shared the wrong one yet. Or not the wrong one, but the one that had what do you call it? Oh, my brain being silly this morning. The one that wasn't this morning. See what I mean? The one that was not having any sound. There we are. Here it is. We'll share it to all my groups real quick. Okay, good enough. Post. Okay, so as I say, oh, there we are. Yes, this morning. It is certainly not morning. I've had been up to a lot today. Anyways, we're drinking Tullamore Dew whiskey and Coca-Cola today. That's the drink of choice. I almost brought too much whiskey, and Felix reminded me that we are talking about a kid's book, not the best time to get sloshed, which there's truth in that. Did a lot of throwing rocks around today. Also gotten a little farther on the tiny temple. We'll be continuing with that pretty soon. I've almost got the Circle of Stones built. And once I do get the consecration ritual, I will post again on that. Anyways, so as I said, today it's the Gnomics, the Three Gates, and the Voice of Silence. Okay, so when we last left our heroes, Atreyu had been stung by Yggdrasil, and in agreement of being with the understanding that even though they only had an hour to live, because during that time they could be transported to anywhere. And so he agrees to be stung. Now he's trapped in the web. Falcor, whose name we don't know yet in the story, the luck dragon, is also stuck in the web. And is Dill. So the Yggdrasil stings Atreyu, and Atreyu wishes to go to the Southern Oracle. When he arrives, he is very sick and starts passing out because of the poison, but Falkor is there as well and explains that he heard what was being said between them, so he realized, well, I can do the same thing myself, and he too wished himself out of the web and to the Southern Oracle with Atreyu. He then swears his devotion to Atreyu and explains what a luck dragon is, and that luck will always be on his side from this moment forward. And that even though, yes, they have a poison in their veins that's going to kill them in an hour, they shouldn't worry because luck will be on their side. And then they pass out. When they awaken, they are being taken care of by a small gnome. The first one is the lady, and she's got like a shawl made out of leaves. She keeps giving them a poison, or the antidote to the poison, and talking to them. And yeah, that's pretty much that chapter, really, is him meeting the gnomes, going up to the little small building that they live in, and them telling him, we'd invite you in, but you don't fit. So they feed him outside, take care of him. And that's where he meets the boy gnome, the one that's the professor, like in the movie, whose name is escaping me at the moment. And he begins to tell him of the 3 gates. I've got some stuff saved here I wanted to read. When we talked about some of the other stuff in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and read this word for word here. The first he lectured is known as, now this is, let's see if I can get it over here. Hold on. I actually remember what page I'm on for once. 97. Enter. Anguiwook. You know, the Anguiwook and her, they okay, I have this part saved. I'm actually wasn't on the quite on the page I wanted. Let's go up just a little. Okay, there we are. The Gnomics, yes. Okay, meets Anguiwook. And I just want to make sure there wasn't anything else. There's a bit where Bastion remembers asking if Jesus Christ had to use the bathroom and getting in trouble for it, even though he was just asking a question. There's a little bit of something there. It's interesting. There we go. He's going into the... Okay. So, the 3 magic gates. And we're just going to read that from over here because I already have it set up. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the AI, and I feel that a big part of what is going on with AI is the same draining that we're talking about, right? I mean, the AI is used to help answer questions and stuff like that, but one of the things they're really aiming it at, and remember, these are the same people that really want to keep us under control, is at creativity. I've actually heard some AI guy talking about how in the future human artistry will be nothing more than a matter of taste. That rather than creating, the creators of the new culture will rather be people with the best taste and know what images to pick from the AI. So they're literally trying to strip away creativity. This is the Gmork. The AI is almost a tool of the Gmork in this way. Now, don't get me wrong. I feel like AI does have its place. We don't need to be building 80 million data centers just to have a thing that can give you navigation and answer questions, though. And, you know, having the idea that AI is going to be writing our poetry and making our paintings. Well, this is just another way to, this is a way to outsource our daydreaming, which adds to the spread of the nothing. Okay, so this is what Eggywook says to Bastion about the gates. And actually, just so I can see what y'all are saying, let's go ahead and share this. Okay, the first he lectured is known as the Great Riddle Gate. The second is the Magic Mirror Gate. And the third is the No Key Gate. Strange, Atreyu broke in. As far as I could see, there was nothing behind that stone gate but an empty plain. Oh, yes, he's already gone up onto the hill above the gates and looked down at the sphinxes. And as he's looking, it's not like in the book or the movie where someone comes through the gate while he's looking at it. Eggywook explains to him that each gate does not exist until the first one has been passed. It's literally not there. So you can't see past the first gate unless someone passes through. But he's looking at the sphinxes, and Eggywook only lets him look at it for a moment, then they come back down, and that's where they have this conversation. The first he lectured is known as the Great Riddle Gate. The second is the Magic Mirror Gate. And the third is the No Key Gate. Strange, Atreyu broke in. As far as I could see, there was nothing behind that stone gate but an empty plain. What are the other gates? Be still, Eggywook scolded. How can I make myself clear if you keep interrupting? It's very complicated. The second gate... Okay, it's easier to read it from over here. It's very complicated. The second gate isn't there until a person has gone through the first, and the third isn't there until the person has the second behind him. And Uyulala isn't there until he has passed through the third. Simply not there. Do you understand? Atreyu nodded, but preferred to say nothing for fear of irritating the gnome. Through my telescope, you have seen the first, the Great Riddle Gate, and the two sphinxes. The gate is always open. Obviously, there's nothing to close. But even so, no one can get through. Here, Eggywook raised a tiny forefinger. Unless the sphinxes close their eyes, and do you know why? The gaze of a sphinx is different from the gaze of any other creature, you and I and everyone else. Our eyes take something in. We see the world. A sphinx sees nothing. In a sense, she is blind. But her eyes send something out. And what do her eyes send out? All the riddles of the universe. That's why these sphinxes are always looking at each other, because only another sphinx can stand a sphinx's gaze. So try to imagine what happens to one who ventures into the area where these two gazes meet. He freezes to the spot, unable to move until he has solved all the riddles of the world. If you go there, you'll find the remains of those poor devils. But, said Atreyu, didn't you say their eyes sometimes close, don't they? Have to sleep now and then. Sleep? Eggywook was shaken with giggles. Goodness gracious, a sphinx sleep? I should say not. You really are an innocent. Still, there's some point to your question. All my research, in fact, hinges on that particular point. The sphinxes shut their eyes for some travelers and let them through. The question that no one has answered up until now is this. Why one traveler and not another? Because you mustn't suppose they let wise, brave, or good people through and keep the stupid, cowardly, and wicked out. Not a bit of it. With my own eyes, I've seen them admit stupid fools and treacherous knaves, while decent, sensible people have given up after being kept waiting for months, and it seems to make no difference whether a person has some serious reason for consulting the oracle or whether he's just come for the fun of it. Haven't your investigations suggested some explanation, Atreyu asked. Angry flashes darted from Eggywook's eyes. Have you been listening or haven't you? Didn't I just say that so far no one has answered that question? Of course, I've worked up a few theories over the years. At first, I thought the Sphinx's judgment might be guided by certain physical characteristics, size, beauty, strength, and so on. But I soon had to drop that idea. Then I toyed with numerical patterns. The idea, for instance, that 3 out of 5 were regularly excluded or that only prime-numbered candidates were admitted. That worked pretty well for the past, but for forecasting, it's no use at all. Since then, I've come up to the conclusion that the Sphinx's decision is based on pure chance and that no principle whatever is involved. But my wife called my conclusion scandalous, unfantastican, and absolutely unscientific. Are you starting your old nonsense again? Came Ugrel's angry voice from the cave. Shame on you. Such skepticism only shows that the bit of your brain you once had has dried up on you. Hear that, said Ingilwook with a sigh, and the worst of it is that she's right. What about the childlike Empress's amulet, Treyu asked. Do you think they'll respect it? They too are natives of Fantastica, after all. Good. Hello, my love. Okay, so anyways. Where were we? Yes, I suppose they are, said Ingilwook, shaking his apple-sized head. But to respect it, they'd have to see it. And they don't see anything, but their gaze would strike you. And I'm not so sure the Sphinxes would obey the childlike Empress. Maybe they are greater than she is. I don't know. Anyway, it's worrisome. Then what do you advise? Atreyu asked. You will have to do what all the others have done. Wait and see what the Sphinxes decide, without hoping to know why. Okay. Okay, here's him passing through the gate. That's the next part that I recorded. So that's the discussion there, and then he goes down and passes through the gate. Exactly. They are things that are destroying human creativity. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and read the part where he's going through the gates. Currents of a terrible unknown force flashed through the upraised bodies, and still more through the almost human faces. It was as though these beings did not merely exist in the way marble, for instance, exists, but as if they were on the very verge of vanishing, but would recreate themselves at the same time. For that very reason, they seemed far more real than anything made of stone. Fear gripped Atreyu. Fear not so much of the danger that threatened him as of... Oh, I thought I recorded the thing in all the gates. Hold on. I'm being a bit all over the place today so far. Okay, so let me come back over to the book. Let's see. I wanted to read about all the books, and I thought I had copy-pasted all that. Apparently not. Atreyu nodded thoughtfully. Urgel came out of the cave. In one hand, she held a bucket with something steaming liquid in it, and under her other arm, she was carrying a bundle of dried plants. Okay, the clock, Bastion's clock strikes 3. Okay, so this is what he says about the second gate. Where were we? Ingilwook asked. Ah, the Great Riddle Gate. At the Great Riddle Gate, Atreyu reminded him. Right. Now suppose you've managed to get through. Then and only then, the second gate will be there for you. The Magic Mirror Gate. And as I've said, I myself have not been able to observe it. What I tell you has been gleaned from travelers' accounts. The second gate is both open and closed. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? It might be better to say neither closed nor open, though that doesn't make it any less crazy. The point is that this gate seems to be a big mirror or something of the kind, though it's made neither of glass nor metal. What it is made of, no one has ever been able to tell me. Anyway, when you stand before it, you see yourself, but not as you would in an ordinary mirror. You don't see your outward appearance. What you see is your real innermost nature. If you want to go through, you have to, in a manner of speaking, go into yourself. Well, said Atreyu, it seems to me that this magic mirror gate is easier to get through than the first. Wrong, cried Ingilwook. Once again, he began to trot back and forth in agitation. Dead wrong, my friend. I've known travelers who consider themselves absolutely blameless to yelp with horror and run away at the sight of the monster grinning out of the mirror at them. We had to care for some of them for weeks before they were even able to start home. We, growled Urgel, who was passing with another bucket. I keep hearing we. When did you ever take care of anybody? Ingilwook waved her away. Others, he went on lecturing, appeared to have seen something even more horrible, but had the courage to go through. What some saw was not so frightening, but it still cost every one of them an inner struggle. Nothing I can say would apply to it all. It's a different experience each time. Good, said Atreyu. Then at least it's possible to go through the magic mirror gate. Oh yes, of course it's possible, or it wouldn't be a gate. Where's your logic, my boy? But it's also possible to go around it, Atreyu said, or isn't it? Yes, indeed, said Ingilwook. Of course it is. But if you do that, there's nothing more behind it. The third gate isn't there until you've gone through the second. How often do I have to tell you that? I understand, but what about this third gate? That's where things get really difficult. Because you see, the no key gate is closed, simply closed. And that's that. There's no handle and no doorknob and no keyhole. Nothing. My theory is that this single, hermetically closed door is made of fantasticum selenium. You may know that there's no way of destroying, bending, or dissolving fantasticum selenium. It's absolutely indestructible. Then there's no way of getting through. Not so fast, not so fast, my boy. Certain individuals have got through and spoken with Uyalala, so the door can be opened. But how? Just listen. Fantasticum selenium reacts to our will. It's our will that makes it unyielding. But if someone succeeds in forgetting all purpose and wanting nothing at all, to him the gate will open of its own accord. Atreyu looked down, said in an undertone, if that's the case, how can I possibly get through? How can I manage to not want to get through? Ingeborg sighed and nodded and sighed. Just what I've been saying. The no-key gate is the hardest. But if I succeed after all, Atreyu asked, will I then be in the Southern Oracle? Yes, said the gnome. But who or what is Uyalala? No idea, said the gnome, and his eyes sparkled with fury. None of those who have reached her has been willing to tell me. How can I expect to complete my scientific work if everyone cloaks himself in mysterious silence? I could tear my hair out if I had any left. If you reach her, Atreyu, will you tell me? Will you? One of these days, my thirst for knowledge will be the death of me, and no one is willing to help. I beg you, promise you'll tell me. Atreyu stood up and looked at the great riddle gate, which lay bathed in the moonlight. I can't promise that, Anguick, he said softly, though I'd be glad to show my gratitude. But if no one has told you who or what Uyalala is, there must be a reason. Before I know what that reason is, I can't decide whether someone who hasn't seen her with his own eyes has a right to know. In that case, get away from me! Then screams the gnome, his eyes literally spewing sparks. Okay. So let's see. Let's unshare that for just a moment. So that is what happens there. Like I said, we're going to talk. I've got a lot to say about those gates. It's part of the reason I wanted to describe the whole bit. And let's see, what else do I have saved here? Okay, so let's see, I've got okay. So then Atreyu goes through the gates, and I think we'll go ahead and read that part out too. From what I've seen, I can get away with reading quite a bit of the book. So he tells him he's going, and he heads off through the gates. Fear gripped Atreyu. Fear, no, not so much of the danger that threatened him as of something above and beyond his own self. It hardly grazed his mind that if the Sphinx's gaze should strike him, he would freeze to the spot forever. No, what made his steps heavier and heavier until he felt as though he were made of cold gray lead was the fear of the unfathomable, of something intolerably vast. Yet he went on. He stopped, looking up. He kept his head bowed and walked very slowly, foot by foot, towards the stone gate. Heavier and heavier grew his burden of fear. He thought it would crush him, but still he went on. He didn't know whether the Sphinxes had closed their eyes or not. Would he be admitted, or would this be the end of his great quest? He had no time to lose in worrying. He just had to take his chances. At a certain point, he felt sure that he had not enough willpower to carry him a single step forward, and just then he heard the echo of his footfalls within the great vaulted gate. Instantly, every last shred of fear fell from him, and he knew that whatever might happen, he would never again be afraid. Looking up, he saw the great riddle gate lay behind him. The Sphinxes had let him through. Up ahead, no more than 20 paces away, where previously there had been nothing but the great empty plain, he saw the magic mirror gate. This gate was large and round with a second moon, for the real moon was still shining high in the sky, and it glittered like polished silver. It was hard to imagine how anyone could pass through a metal surface, but Atreyu didn't hesitate for a moment. After what Ingeborg had said, he expected a terrifying image of himself to come toward him out of the mirror. But now he had left all fear behind him. He hardly gave the matter a thought. What he saw was something quite unexpected, which wasn't the least bit terrifying, but which baffled him completely. He saw a fat little boy with a pale face, a boy his own age, and this little boy was sitting on a pile of mats reading a book. The little boy had large, sad looking eyes, and he was wrapped in frayed gray blankets. Behind him, a few motionless animals could be distinguished in the half light: an eagle, an owl, and a fox. And farther off, there was something that looked like a white skeleton. He couldn't make out exactly what it was. Okay. We're just going to keep going. Just wanted to check if anyone said anything. Bastian gave a start when he realized what he had just read. Why, that was him! The description was right in every detail. The book trembled in his hands. This was going too far. How could there be something in a book that applied only to his particular moment and only to him? It could only be a crazy accident, but a very remarkable accident. Bastian, he said aloud, you really are a screwball. Pull yourself together. He had meant to say this very sternly, but his voice quavered a little, for he was not quite sure that what had happened was an accident. Just imagine, he thought, what if they really heard of me in Fantastic? Wouldn't that be wonderful? But he didn't dare say it aloud. A faint smile of astonishment played over Atreyu's lips as he passed into the mirror image. He was rather surprised that he was succeeding so easily in something that others had found insuperably difficult. But on the way through, he felt a strange, prickly shudder. He had no suspicion of what had really happened to him. For when he emerged on the far side of the magic mirror gate, he had lost all memory of himself, of his past life, aims, and purposes. He had forgotten the great quest that had brought him here. He didn't even know his own name. He was like a newborn child. Up ahead of him, only a few steps away, he saw the no-key gate. But he had forgotten its name, and forgotten that his purpose in passing through it was to reach the Southern Oracle. He had no idea why he was here, or what he was supposed to do. He felt light and cheerful. He laughed for no reason, for the sheer pleasure of it. The gate he saw before him was as small and low as a common door, and stood all by itself, no walls around it, on the empty plain. And this door was closed. Atreyu looked at it for a while. It seemed to be made of some material with a coppery sheen. It was nice to look at, but Atreyu soon lost interest. He went around the gate and examined it from behind, but the back looked no different than the front. And then there was neither a handle nor knob nor keyhole. Obviously, this door could not be opened. Anyway, why would anyone want to open it, since it led nowhere and was just standing there? For behind the gate there was only wide, flat, empty plain. Atreyu felt like leaving. He turned back and went around the magic gate, looked at it for some time without realizing what it was. He decided to go away. No, don't go away, said Bastian aloud. Turn around. You have to go through the no-key gate. I know I say I'm typically not going to talk about things till after I've done the recap, but it's just such a beautiful moment. I want to hit the nail on the head here I want to hit the iron while it's hot. Atreyu just passed through a mirror showing that his higher self, his true self, his full self was Bastian. And then when he is in that state where he can remember nothing, he has gone no mind, right? This is a familiar concept if we're thinking about meditation and Gnosis. It was his higher self, the part of him that was outside of himself, that led him to where he needed to go and through that final gate. I just wanted to point that out. But then turned back to the no-key gate. He wanted to look at its coppery sheen. And often this is the way it goes with those moments when your Bastian, your fuller self, is talking to you in this story of your current life. It's just a feeling, a pull back to something. Once more, he stood in front of the gate, bending his head to the left, bending it to the right, enjoying himself. Tenderly, he stroked the strange material that felt warm and almost alive. Then the door opened by a crack. Atreyu stuck his head through and saw something he hadn't seen on the other side when he had walked around the gate. He pulled his head back, looked past the gate, and saw only the empty plain. He looked again through the crack in the door and saw a long corridor flanked by innumerable huge columns, and farther off there were stairs and more pillars and terraces, and more stairs and a whole forest of columns. But none of these columns supported a roof, for above them Atreyu could see the night sky. He passed through the gate and looked around him with wonderment. The door closed behind him. And then we have a bit with Bastian here. And he lights it, manages to light a candle. The voice of silence. The last chapter we're looking for tonight. It is Telemodor, telemod, Telemordu whiskey and Coca-Cola. One of my favorite one of my favorites actually, old standby at this point. One of my favorite mixed drinks. I don't know the name of, but it's I mean, this is just Coke and whiskey. That's the name of it. But ginger ale and Canadian whiskey, especially like a VO. Oh, that's some good stuff. Anyway, hi Max. Okay, so the voice of silence. So he's going through there, seeing a place of ornamental designs. He examines them all, and then eventually, little by little, the circle became smaller and smaller. And after a while, he was able to understand the voice was singing. He's been hearing a voice, and he goes in towards the voice in smaller and smaller circles. Oh, nothing can happen more than once, but all things must happen one day. Over hill and dell, over wood and stream, my dying voice will blow away. Atreyu turned in the direction of the voice, which darted fitfully among the columns, but he could see no one. Who are you? He cried. The voice came back to him like an echo. Who are you? Atreyu pondered. Who am I? He murmured. I don't know. I've been feeling that I once knew, but it doesn't matter. The singing voice answered. If questions you would ask of me, you must speak in poetry. For rhymeless talk that strikes my ears, I cannot hear, I cannot hear. I don't know what I don't know what I'm supposed to sing this to the tune of. Atreyu hadn't much practice in rhyming. This would be a difficult conversation. He thought if the voice only understood poetry. The voice only understands poetry. I want to point that out as well. He racked his brains for a while, then came out with, I hope it isn't going too far, but could you tell me who you are? This time the voice answered at once, I hear you now, your words are clear, I understand as well as hear. And then coming from a different direction is saying, I thank you, friend, for your goodwill. I'm glad that you have come to me. I am Uyalala, the voice of silence in the palace of deep mystery. Atreyu noticed that the voice rose and fell, but was never wholly silent. Even when it sang no words or when he was speaking, a sound hovered in the air. For a time it seemed to stand still. Then it moved slowly away from him. He ran after it and asked, Oh, Layla, tell me where you hid. I cannot see you and so wish I did. Passing by him, the voice breathed into air. Never has anyone seen me, never do I appear. You will never see me, and yet I am here. Then you're invisible, he asked. But when no answer came, he remembered that he had to speak in rhyme and asked, Have you no body, is that what you mean, or is it only that you can't be seen? He heard a soft bell-like sound, which might have been a laugh or a sob, in the voice saying, Yes and no, neither one. I do not appear in the brightness of the sun. As you appear, for my body is but sound that one can hear but never see. And this voice you're hearing now is all there is of me. In amazement, Atreyu followed the sound this way and that through the forest columns. It took him some time to get to a new question. Do I understand you right? Your body is the melody, but if you should cease to sing, would you cease to be? The answer came to him from very, very near. Once my song is ended, what comes to others soon or late, when their bodies pass away, will also be my fate. My life will last the time of my song, but that will not be long. Now it seemed certain the voice was sobbing, and Atreyu, who could not understand why, hastened to ask, Why are you so sad? Why are you crying? You sound so young, why speak of dying? And the voice came back like an echo. I am only a song of lament, the wind will blow me away. But tell me now why you were sent, what have you come to say? The voice died away among the columns, and Atreyu turned in all directions, trying to pick it up again. For a little while he heard nothing, then starting in the distance, the voice came quickly closer. It sounded almost impatient. Uyala is answers. Answer on questions feed. So ask me what you've come to ask, for questions are her need. Atreyu cried out, Then help me, Ulala, tell me why you must sing a plaint if you must soon die. And the voice sang, The childlike empress is sick, will die. then nothing will swallow this place, and it will perish, and so will I. We shall vanish into the nowhere, and never, as though we had never been. The Empress needs a new name to make her well again. Atreyu pleaded, "Oh, tell me who, Eulela, tell me who can give the childlike Empress her name, which alone will let her live." The voice replied, "Listen and listen well to the truth I have to tell. Though your spirit may be blind, the sense of what I say print words upon your mind. Before you go away later, you may dredge them up from the depths of memory. Raise them to the light of day exactly as they flow from me. Everything depends on whether you remember faithfully." For a time he heard only plaintive sound without words, and suddenly the voice came from right next to him, as though someone were whispering into his ear. "Who can give the childlike Empress the new name that will make her well? Not you, not I, no elf, no djinn can save us from this evil spell. For we are figures in a book. We do what we were invented for, but we can fashion nothing new. We cannot change from what we are. But there's a realm outside of Fantastica, the outer world is its name. The people who live there are rich indeed, and not all the same. Born of the word, the children of man, or humans as they're sometimes called, have the gift of giving names ever since our worlds began. In every age it's they who gave the childlike Empress life, for wondrous new names have the power to save. But now for many and many a day no humans have visited Fantastica, for they no longer know the way. They have forgotten how real we are. They don't believe in us anymore. Oh, if only one child of man would come, oh, then at last things would be done. If only one would hear our plea, for them it is near, but for us too far. Never can we get to them, for theirs is the world of reality. But tell me, my hero, you so young, will you remember what I have sung?" "Oh, yes," cried Atreyu. In his bewilderment, he was determined to imprint every word on his memory, though he had forgotten what for. He merely had a feeling that it was very, very important. But the sing-song voice, at the effort of hearing and speaking in rhymes, made him sleepy. He murmured, I will remember every word, but tell me what shall I do with what I have heard?" The voice answered, "That is for you alone to decide. I've told you what is in my heart. So this is when our ways divide, when you and I must part. But if you go away, where will you stay? Though nothing has come near, the oracle is dying. No one again will hear you, Layla, laughing, singing. You are the last to hear my voice among the columns, sounding far and near. Perhaps you will accomplish what no one has done, but to succeed, young hero, remember what I have sung." And then farther and farther in the distance, Atreyu heard the words, "Oh, nothing can happen more than once, but all things must happen one day. Over the hill and dell, over wood and stream, my dying voice will blow away." Okay, so then Bastion thinks about how he should be there, and he comes out of it, and the nothing has begun to touch the place. So now the sphinxes are just piles of the riddle gate's just a pile of stone. He thought it might be a stony, rusted red mountain where the riddle gate was, but it all looks not only gone, but as if it had never been. And it turns out he's been gone for 5 days, or see, he thought he was only gone for one night, but he's been gone. I feel like it was important. That number, where is it? 7 days and 7 nights. And just the whole 7 days thing. Okay. And the place is all gone. The gnomes are all sad. And they go to find a new place. And Atreyu and Falcor. Hey, Kiana. Greetings. And Atreyu and Falcor continue on their mission. The next chapter will be the Wind Giants. And let's see, we're probably going to read 3 again. While I'm here messing around with this, let's jump back up to the chapters and see how many we're going to read next time. I feel like 3 worked out. I read all 3 this time because those 3 all go together very well. Now, next time we'll read the Wind Giants, Spook City, the Flight to the Ivory Tower. we're about to get into the shadow work part of it. That's coming up. So we got the Wind Giant, Spook City, and the Flight to the Ivory Tower, which were still in the book, or still in the same ones that are in the movie. Okay, so like I said, I got a lot to say about this particular 3 chapters. Well, I have a lot to say about 2 of them. The Gnomics, just, really, it tells you about, you do get to hear some about the gates and what's going on there. But the only thing really important in that chapter having to do with magic is Falkor and deeper understanding of Falkor, the dragon. And you will notice he talks later, and he talks a lot in this book about how good and bad are seen the same in the eyes of the childlike empress. That is not the same of Falkor. Falkor chose to go with Atreyu. He could have whisked himself anywhere, right? But he saw that Atreyu tried to save him. And he also saw that Atreyu had the Orin, and that he would need Falkor's help because he is on the great quest. He has great need, but he also has... Now, when I say he is pure of heart, this does not mean he is all good. And a bit more as we talk about this. But when I say he is pure of heart, I say that he is Atreyu, that he is himself, that he is not someone trying to be someone else. He is in alignment with himself, right? We're going to see that there's more to him than that, obviously, as the chapters continue. And Atreyu and Falkor does not use the word pure of heart, more that Atreyu was trying to save him, that he is good and kind, and that he had this other person, he had the Luck Dragon's safety at heart. So Falkor chooses. As I was saying, Falkor is the new mode of transportation, right? He shows up right after Artrax is lost. And they keep talking about him, or he keeps in with him throughout the book after this. Now, well, anyways, he's with him for now. You'll see what happens later on in the book. I just remembered I'm not exactly correct, but no spoilers, right? Anyways, so from here, like I said, we learn about Falkor, and Falkor is full of luck. He isn't just a vehicle, a transportation route that gets you from one to the next. He is the luck that carries you where you want to go, where you wish to go, takes you to the end of the great quest. And he is the groove. Yeah, I talk a lot about thou shalt groove. That's essentially what Falkor is. Now, I'm sure Michael Ende doesn't have the concept of the groove in the same way that I do, but that's what this is. This is catching the groove, the flow, actually walking within the ways of your fate. And that's why I brought up that about him being pure of heart, him being Atreyu, him being himself, because that is good karma, right? If you really understand the concept of karma, which is kind of what I'm talking about here, it is behaving within your own nature. Atreyu is behaving within his own nature when he saves Falkor. Under other circumstances, he would have fought Yggdrasil to save Falkor. because he is a warrior, he is a fighter. That is what he does. And he still challenges him, he still confronts him, and is even essentially risked his own life to save Falkor, and only left Falkor in the net when he understood that he would have to be able to save all of Fantasia, right? But then that luck followed him because he acted within his own nature. He was seen to be as he is. And so Falkor comes with him. And then we get to the gates. I'm pretty sure he's trying to say something about masculinity and femininity with the gnomes. But I don't think I agree with what he's trying to say. So I don't know if I'm even going to touch on that a whole lot, you know. But there's definitely a thing there with two sides to a coin of something. Like there's something going on there with those two and how they are perfectly in sync but are in conflict at the same time, right? And the one is always just concerned with facts and knowledge, and the other is concerned with keeping you well, common sense, and feeding you. I mean, that's kind of what we're going for in the book here, right? Urgel, the wife of the pair, she is the everyday world. She is chopping wood and carrying water. While her husband, who clearly would not be able to keep himself alive or even maintain what he does without her taking care of him, is the other side of that coin, right? She says, even when he talks about nursing people back to health, I hear a lot of we, when it's her that's done all of that work. It's her that provides the foundation, the base, the everyday, the mundane, so that he can reach up to them peaks and discover these things. And like I said, I think he's trying to say something about masculinity and femininity there, but I reject that part. I just straight reject that part. Because I don't see either one of those things as gender, honestly. I mean, you know, I know everybody wants to put nurturing and stuff into a feminine category, but I've known some very nurturing men that were it just doesn't mean anything to me. There's some polarities there there's a bunch of polarities in the universe that one could put masculine or feminine on, but that's an unnecessary complication for most things. You know? I mean, that's boiling everything down to what goes in and out. I don't know how to put it. That's not even quite right. But it boils everything down to that, you know? And one thing entering another, and this thing enters that thing when they interact and stuff, but it doesn't really assist in much for biological creation. Even then, you know, it's only the two with our species. There's plenty of other species, but there's like 5 or 6 different. Yeah, it gets way confusing. It's not a universal concept. So we're going to get past that. Like I said, I wasn't even I claimed that one. Here I go. A little coughing fit again. I went flat quick for some reason. Add some bubbles. Much better. Okay, so then we get up to the 3 gates. And this is where the achieving Gnosis comes in. Before that, we're just preparing for that moment. And in a way, you kind of need to have Falcor. He needed Falcor to get to the gates. But even when he got to the gates, he still needed to concern himself with the mundane. He needed to be healed, purified, cleansed of his poisons, right? And then he goes through these 3 gates. And Anguiwook, he doesn't understand what the first gate is about, but I think I know. Especially when you read the book and it's talking about what is crushing on him and weighing on Atreyu when he goes through that gate. It's fear. You must overcome your fear. A lot of people have fear of magic, fear of the abyss, of the nothing. Yeah. Now, we want to be careful with that word because I'm not talking about the nothing in the concept of this book, right? We should fear boredom. There is few things more terrifying than boredom, and that's the nothing that he's talking about, the existential crisis, the nihilism. Nihilism is a silly thing and doesn't need to be feared. Though I did have my own existential crisis that lasted for a huge part of my 20s. It is very dangerous, but it's a silly thing. Nihilism. It's like a child that asked why so many times he stopped getting an answer and then decided there wasn't one. At some point, the whys give out. And then the question is it why no longer matters, and the answer is how. Or the new question is how. Not why do I do this, but how do I do this? What do I want to do? Create yourself. That's the whole point of these books. That's why he gives the childlike empress a name. That's the whole thing. This is a plea for absurdism in a way. But we're getting there, right? We already know that that's how it's created. And they're trying to lure the child in to Fantasia. And as you read on, you'll see how in some ways it is, yes, luring him on to join Fantasia. But he's also, this is Michael Ende setting up the book. This is Michael Ende prepping the child's mind to be pulled into the book, or the reader's mind of any age. But again, like I said, these books are intended for people that are just coming of age. Johnston, great question. Felix and I play chess every day, and I often accuse them of being a mind reader because they see every single thing I'm up to. Now, we don't use magic against each other in chess, but yeah, I would think you definitely could. You can certainly use glamour magic to confuse. I mean, you're allowed to talk during these games, and you can fluster people by simply talking a lot, saying odd things, and even just you're able to look people in the eyes. You can certainly use glamour magic to fluster, confuse, make your opponent think different things about you, of different appearances. Yes, absolutely. You can definitely use magic against someone in a chess game. Felix and I do not, however. Though I do often accuse them of mind reading, it's just that they're that much better at chess than me, honestly. I enjoy chess. I am not very good. Felix has been playing their whole life and is very good. At least much better than I. That's all I can say for sure about that. Me, I have improved vastly over the last 2 or 3 years, but I mean, before that, I was just someone that got high and played chess sometimes. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, that first gate is fear. That is the thing he's talking about. But it's, it's the fear of the unfathomable. I have a hard time with that word. Unfathomable. I think I said it right. I think. Yeah. So, you know, in in some traditions they talk about crossing the abyss, right? As part of your original initiation process. And there's a lot of ritual around this. And that's kind of what he's getting at here, right? Like crossing the veil. This is almost a discussion on the psychic sensor. It just keeps going forward. It's also hesitation. Once you are going in, it's best not to hesitate, to just keep marching forward and not let the fear and concern into you. You don't want to get the fear. You know, that's more of like Hunter S. Thompson. I've got the fear. Yeah, you don't want the fear. You want to walk into these moments with a feeling of power and strength. You want to cross the abyss with all the willpower and desire that you can to cross that. And so when I'm talking about achieving Gnosis, this is that stepping over. This isn't the full portion of it, but it's that entering into the new moment. And some people find there's a hump there. There's a barrier to actually stepping into that moment. Whatever it is, a lot of people see it as fear. And I think that's what he's getting at here. But then after that, now we get to the second gate. And the second gate, that's know thyself, right? Essentially. But there's more to it than that. And that's why it's beautiful that he's using this metaphor to describe all of this, because this is one of the things you can't fully just say with words. You have to create an understanding beyond that. There are words we can use to dance around the actual facts, but there are no words that will actually lay out what it is that is being said in this metaphorical process he's going through here in these 3 steps. But he lays it out very well. We've got the fear part, and a lot of your actual initiation processes, the initiate is purposely cause the initiate fear. This is why, and even in a Wiccan initiation, why they bind you at the beginning and then make you swear your oaths and cut you free, because there's supposed to be a moment of fear. They're at in a lot of ceremonies. Our body has a reaction to fear. So it is fear, and not the lack of fear, even. Because Atreyu was afraid, but he overcomes it. He gets past it. He leaves that behind. And then he realizes he can never be afraid again. And so there's an importance there. There is that there's a thing there. For me, that thing that he's talking about there, for me, it was when I hit that moment, is when I realized I had no right to fear spirits. They can't harm me. I'm much more likely to be able to harm them than they are me. I don't have the right to fear. It's not something that belongs to me, right? Like in Dune, they talk about, I will let the fear wash over me. It is the mind killer. I will let the fire. I will let the fear. Oh, I can't remember the Dune mantra, right? But he's talking about letting the fear just wash over you. When I look behind you, there will be nothing, only where the fear used to be. I want to say that right. Hold on a second. Dune fear mantra. Fear is the mind killer. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it is gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. And that's the same thing we're talking about here. That's that same metaphor. Pass over and through me. Yes. Pass over. Yeah, he's walking beneath the sphinxes. They are over him as he goes through. And then he realizes that fear can be left behind. And only he remains. Well, we're still talking about how fear is one of the things that prevents you from getting past that first gate, right? That's what the first gate is fear. All the confusion, all the riddles of the universe. And that's what he's talking about is, because that's an important bit there, where the sphinxes, if they look directly at you, you get paralyzed with all the questions of the world. You get analysis paralysis, right? Any of us that are neurodivergent know what he's talking about here. That hits you. And there's a connection there between that and the buzzing of Yggdrasil back at the web. The overstimulation of that, right? That executive dysfunction that can come from the analysis paralysis and freezing of the self. And this is perhaps one of the things that we have to push through, right? I mean, you can't solve those riddles, but this is there's an important thing here about analysis paralysis and executive dysfunction, but how we get through that is different for all of us, right? Now, Michael Endel, he's writing about it for a neurotypical. A neurotypical, these things are fear induced when they have analysis paralysis because they have too much coming in at once and they're like, I don't know which answer. It's a little different for us. We have to be able to learn how to push through the analysis paralysis. We have to we have to learn to walk past the Sphinx's gaze constantly. We have to learn to step past and break through. In the executive dysfunction and analysis paralysis, what? The narrow gates are 3, 2 round, 1 rectangular, 9 feet off the dirt, 2 in a throne. It's my hangout room. Well, okay, but we're actually talking about the 3 gates in the never-ending story. Like, we're talking about the metaphor of the book. And this first gate is about overcoming fear and having the will to pass through. And there's where it comes out for us neurodivergence, right? Because I was saying, like, we almost have to step through the Sphinx's gaze. Because the Sphinx is already gazing upon us before we ever entered the gate. So this first gate for us in some ways is a different thing. But we must still pass through that abyss. And analysis paralysis is the same thing as fear and can be treated in the same way. Oh, absolutely, we all are. But the only thing we can really do with that analysis paralysis, if you'll excuse the plagiarism, I must not fear analysis paralysis. Analysis paralysis is the mind killer. Analysis paralysis is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my analysis paralysis. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. And where analysis paralysis has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. We got to treat it the same way. You know, we have to find our way. That is the only real way through it. So, I mean, but divergent group there the other day, and they was talking about the executive dysfunction and the analysis paralysis, and how they get out of it is going, "Come on, Barbie, let's go party," and they just that's the crack that shatters the glass and allows us to step through. But now we stand before the mirror. And perhaps this is the part some people fear. This is the first hint of shadow work in the book. Why are we neurodivergent? Oof. Another great question, one I can't completely answer. I have theories and thoughts. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of the people on my channel, watch my channel, are neurodivergent. I've talked about this lots of times. But we're not all on the same spot of the spectrum. Like myself, I'm what the heck do they call us now? AUDHD. I got autism. Basically now they say it's autism and attention deficit hyper disorder combined. When I was a kid, there was ADD, which is what they said I had, was attention deficit disorder, or I'm stuck in my head. And I have a whole inner world, daydreamer. And then there's attention deficit hyper disorder, and those are the kids that are running around in circles, jumping up and down. I had a lot of friends like that as a kid, and I could be like that. Like, I'm not saying I never spazzed out as a kid or never spaz out now, but I also have that. I have my reality and the reality I live in are slightly. My reality and the mundane reality are not completely aligned because my perception is focused on things that other people don't see, right? I mean, anymore it's pretty lined up because I live with a house I'm married to Felix, who's practically in the same spot on the spectrum as me. There's another autistic in the house. Everybody. I live with a bunch of neurodivergents, and that certainly helps keep me a little more. Well, it keeps that odd world from being less isolated, I suppose. I don't know. That one I can't fully answer for you, Johnston. But it's certainly something I think about a lot. And one thing I would say, for me at least, is part of the key out of it, and that's why the marijuana works so well, is just that my inner world is very interesting. I've got a lot to think about in my head. And the outer world is less interesting, and I'm easily distracted by my own mind. Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying there. But that's one of them things that, that part of it, it can be answered by absurdity, right? So if it's meaningless, that makes it an open sandbox, and you can create your own meaning, right? It's like Minecraft. Minecraft, there's no overarching quest. I mean, I've never played Minecraft, just to be clear, but it's one of it's like it's what it's life is like one of those video games where there is no overarching quest and endpoint. It's just an open sandbox game. So make your meaning, figure out what you want to do those things. That is literally the point. That's a big part of actually what I've been well, it's a big part of what of what I preach, teach, whatever you want to call it, all the time, is that that's it. That's the key to meaning and value, is that meaning and value come from you. You have your own meaning and value, which are specific and important to you as the center of the universe. And you play your part in the pattern. Every weave in the thread, every weave of the thread matters. Every part of the pattern has its has its part to play. And we play that part by being ourselves, by acting within our own nature. And in order to truly act within our own nature, first thing we have to do is strip away all value and meaning to the things outside of us, so that we can see clearly where its value and meaning is for us. And this is how we weave our way into the thread of the pattern and become and create ourselves as we wish to be, which is what is required for the weave to work out properly. We each must be ourselves. Okay. And that's where we're at here. That's brings us right back to the second gate. This is the mirror gate. This is the gate where you must face yourself. In some ways, this is shadow work, right? And I talk about this particular thing in direct detail, like we talked about it on the last live, I believe, about talking to yourself. And the most direct way to do this is just like the mirror gate. Literally go look in the mirror and talk to yourself. And it's amazing the amount of questions you can get answered if you just ask yourself who you are, what you want. And it's a great way to process. Yes, that one I don't often suffer from optimization obsessions. My dad drives himself insane with those things. And hope you don't mind me saying, love, but Felix tends to really fuss with stuff a lot too. I didn't get that part in my own brand of neurodivergence. I'm one of them ones that leaves everything 9/10 finished. I'm horrible about that. Like, I'll make something and I'll be doing a really good job. Everything looks perfect. And then it looks, yeah, it's kind of done, but it's not quite finished. And then there I go. I'm off doing some other thing, like my skirts. I make skirts that I wear all the time. None of them are actually hemmed. Everything else is done, but I never hardly ever hem anything that I sew. I'm always forgetting those final little touch details. Sometimes I will accept things as done that just, and maybe it's a fear of that optimization, because I have gotten stuck in that. I used to get stuck in it a lot when I was a kid. So maybe it's a fear of that causes me to behave the way I do about a lot of things. But like if you see the Pop-It video that I made, sometimes I will accept subpar results, but you can make subpar results work. Subpar mundane results does not necessarily mean your magic will be subpar when it comes to manifesting. you know, like the puppet. I'm actually a lot better at sewing than that video would make you think. That puppet comes out looking absolutely ridiculous, but I just tried to sew, no pattern and stuff. Came out horrible. So the optimization one, as far as the neurodivergence, I'm a sorcerer, not a psychiatrist. Like I can certainly give you my opinions on those things, but as much as I talk about getting as much as I talk about some of the keys to working with our brains, that's almost always in relation to magic. The only thing that I have special to say on all of that, honestly, outside of magic, is I'm a bit of a neurotypical whisperer at this point. I got real good at talking to neurotypicals and knowing how to deal with them. Like, I went from not being able to have a conversation to being a tour guide and a public performer through a lot of study. And actually, like, a lot of salesmanship classes, because I wound up in sales on accident. Anyways, we are getting way off the subject. So, in this moment, I can say there's some shadow work involved here, but Endel is talking about connecting to the higher self, right? Because Bastion, and this is that metaphor is going to get real weird as the book continues, and Bastion and Atreyu are together. But Atreyu is Bastion's avatar in the never-ending story. That's the character he's pretending to be as he reads the book. Just like we all did when we were kids, when we watched movies and stuff. Like when I was a kid, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first one came out, and we'd all argue over who was which turtle as we're watching the movie. I get to be Donatello. I get to be Leonardo. That's part of what Bastion is doing. And that's why in this moment, when Atreyu goes up to that mirror to pass through, what does he see as his real self? He sees Atreyu. It's a plot device for the book, but it is also a key point to what it is that we are getting at with these books, right? This is the moment of connecting to the fuller self. And for the reader, you're supposed to be identifying with Bastion, right? So, who he wants you to see in this moment as Atreyu enters the mirror and essentially connects with Bastion, kind of becomes Bastion, is you being Bastion, you being the one reading the book and letting the character in, acknowledging. He's connecting you more to the book. He's putting you in the book with this moment, but also connecting you, giving you that concept of connecting to the higher self, the fuller self, because Bastion is the thing that Atreyu is seeking, right? That's an important bit there. That's a real important bit. Bastion, or Atreyu, is seeking Bastion, his higher self, so that his highest self can give the childlike empress a name and give Fantasia meaning. Give it meaning to Bastion, connecting himself into his daydreams, his fantasy, his inner world. That's why he says to call it the outer world, right? But just like in actual magic, it is made clear that it isn't just Bastion's inner world. he isn't the only child that has come to Fantasia and given the childlike empress a name. She's had many names. Kind of makes me think of whose name has too many names and whose name has too many faces. Sometimes, but going back to the optimization thing, sometimes I wish I was the other way, to be honest. I mean, yeah, it can be. I know what that moment's like when you get the perfection obsessions. I have done it. I have been there. I've felt that. But a lot of times, I guess like I'd like to have finished more projects than I have. Anyways, any longtime viewer of the channel can certainly think back to quite a few things. Like I've started this thing, and then I actually do wind up. Funny part about this is the small starting of things, like with the Goblin project, some of the other ones, they wind up building up to things later. And I think that I just kind of left something off, but then it winds up being connected to other stuff that I work on at a later date. It's like I'm putting down pieces, and my bastion, my fuller self, is like, no, you need to do this thing, and you need to do that thing. And each one of them, I get all excited and think it's a full thing when really you're just making the one point. He's just getting me to do this part and that part. There's definitely a lot of that in my life where it is the other me, the higher self, kind of directing what it is we're up to, because he's the one that's already gotten there. So he knows what we're supposed to do. So it doesn't quite work like that. But he knows the path that leads to his own creation, because he is me and I am his memory. But I am in the present, he is in the now. If that makes sense. And that's the way it works for all of us. Though we're all, depending on the amount of connection we have to our own higher self, right? But this is how we reach that moment. This is part of how we reach Gnosis, even for any spell. We have to overcome the analysis paralysis, the fear of entering into spell work, because some people have a lot of fear over that. You have to overcome hesitation. Be sure of your intent and be determined to walk through that barrier, over that hump, to begin the pursuit of a magical state. Excuse me. I'll get to your question in just a moment, Johnson. Yeah, you have to get over that. Let me start that one again. Once I stop coughing. Let me answer your question first, then we'll get back to this. Because not all magicals people are neurodivergent, and not all neurodivergent people are magical. That being said, everyone is magical to some degree, and any person can practice magic. People that are neurodivergent tend to be tend to be drawn to the craft. And in some ways have many advantages for it. But it is not necessarily to be neurodivergent. That being said, entering magic, becoming magical, part of it does change the way one mind works. It changes the way you perceive the world. And ideally, with all the self-hypnosis over time and different mental workings, you should get to the point where you can control your brain to some degree. This is something that is already present in a lot of neurodivergence already. Like myself, I did have the advantage of getting diagnosed very young. And also, my dad taught me to meditate. Like, I don't even know when. I think I learned how to meditate before I learned how to read. I could read before I went to kindergarten. I don't know when. I know he taught me to meditate. And that being able to meditate on my mind. This is one of the things I strongly suggest for anyone, neurotypical, neurodivergent, wherever you are on any spectrum. One of the things that we want to do with meditation is actually learn to contact and interact with your brain itself, because you are not your brain. Your brain is a receptor of information and a transfer point. It is a place where you store knowledge and receive perception of the place where you receive perception from the mundane world and contact the mental plane. And it is also the center point of the focus for where you connect with the astral plane as well. So either way, it is a nexus point, but it is not you. It is a physical manifestation of all those things that are taking place. So we can actually meditate on the brain. Totes indeed, my love. We can actually meditate on the brain and how it functions as a meditational process. Often when I do this, I took a cue from Robert Anton Wilson with his idea of brain circuits. Well, when I do it now, when I was a child, I literally pictured it as programming. I would imagine my brain as a computer and imagine functions. Imagine my brain being programmed. And I would even, back then, they had cassette drives. Really dating myself here, but when I was real little, the only computers there around had cassette drives. So, like that, you may have heard the mechanical sound, like ding, 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 ding. I would meditate to that sound and imagine it being a program running in my brain, sorting out different things, getting my brain to accept information and telling it how to behave, getting myself to sit still, for example, putting in things to get myself to be able to sit still, to maintain my composure in class, and trying to get my brain to slow down and do memory work. And then after a while, I even installed a typewriter on the side of my head here, and I would type in stuff that I wanted to do. And I need to get back to that because that worked better. Like later on, I began imagining it as cycles. Good question. Greetings, Agatha. I'll get to that. I'm gonna answer that question, and then I was in the middle of something real good with the never-ending story stuff. We'll get back to that. I have to remember what the heck I was talking about with that part now. Anyways, is our brain the same brain that is what we think with when we go outside the body on the astral plane? No, not really. I mean, there's part of that there because even when we're on the astral plane, even every fully out of body experience we have, we are still partially connected to our body until that connection is severed with death. And even then, there's still some connection to that body for a while. You know, that's how necromancy works, right? Part of it. And then there's the residual aspect that isn't connected as much. It's a copy, you know. There's links there. There's anyways, that's a completely different episode. When we are in a fully out of body experience, there is still some small connection to the brain, but we exist on all three planes, even between lives. There's still a part of us that exists on the material plane, which isn't necessarily connected any longer connected to our body, but we have the mental aspect of ourselves, the information containing what we are, our perception itself, and a catalog of information and memory wrapped around that core on the mental plane. And that is the bit that would serve the same function as our brain does when we don't physically have a brain any longer. Okay, so let's see. I was talking about Bastion and the higher self, the connection between the two, and how we are brought into that moment. And I had a good thing there. But then I started coughing, started answering questions. Which were great questions, by the way. That may have sounded like you may have feel like you just like that means like you interrupted the flow. That is okay. I am here to answer the questions, especially good questions like the ones some of the ones you just asked. Okay, so I do want to get back to that now. Um, the Bastion connection to Atreyu, and he is seeking Atreyu. Right? Atreyu is seeking Bastion. That's the whole point of the quest, is for him to find his higher self, his fuller self. And that is what he is doing when he passes through this gate. You know, and he talked about some people run away screaming, everyone confronts the thing. He's talking a lot about shadow work in this moment to fully understand the self, because it is difficult to connect to the self when there's so much stuff hanging on us that isn't us. The things that have been placed onto us with scripts and, just by scripts, I'm sure you know what I mean. Like the stuff that has been taught to us that this is the way things go. This is what we're supposed to say in this situation. This is how the story goes in this moment, because this is how it always goes. The programming of life. That's what I was talking about before. Channeling my inner robot. Indeed. Yeah, like I was saying, I used to actually, when I was a kid and I thought of my mind as a computer, well, I would type things in and I would imagine the side of my head here as a keyboard. It might work even better now that I'm bald. I wasn't bald as a kid, I had long hair. But I would use my brain as a computer. And that's a very useful tool. And I need to remember to start doing. I mean, I have been getting back to it, but it's never been as powerful as it was when I was a child. I did go on to Anton Wilson's idea of the opening brain circuits later, and I literally visualized circuits in my brain opening up. See, just visualizing my brain itself and then trying to instruct it from there. And that does work as well. Okay. So, there we go. That's better. As I was saying, the Bastion Atreyu interaction is him seeking his higher self. And when he passes through that mirror, he is becoming himself. He is becoming that full self. But then, of course, in that moment, he loses all understanding of who he is. And this is the thing we often call the ego death. This is that he talks about it in Prometheus Rising, I believe, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go back and look for sure. But he talks about different circuits of the brain, and it's not computer-like what he's talking about. He's talking about opening up like different circuits in the brain, and what he's basically talking about is causing, I'd want to say muscle memory, but brain memory, the circuits that are connected with different concepts and teaching your brain that this concept is reality and this is how things work and this is where we go. And it's useful. It was good. I do recommend it. I find that for actual brain control itself, placing your brain as pretending your brain is a computer, because it's just an organic computer, seems to be more effective as far as actual mind control. But opening up them circuits is an interesting exercise in and of itself. And the two do not have to be mutually exclusive. Unfortunately, what happened with the computer stuff is as I got older, I felt silly and I quit doing the computer brain thing and tried to be more cool wizard, But you can be a cool wizard and have a computer in your brain at the same time. But, you don't know that when you're 14. Indeed. Now I have no problem with feeling silly. Being silly is good. But when you're 15, and you're 14, 15 years old and you want to fit in, that was the biggest mistake I ever made. 8th grade, I tried to be a normal. That Terminator movie had just come out with John Connor as the teenager, and he had the hair side and those gecko shirts were all popular with the preppy kids, and MC Hammer was in, and the flashy shoes. So I wanted to fit in, and I went and I got all those things on the same kid. I had the stoner haircut, the preppy t-shirt, the rapper pants, the flashing shoes, which I think were the rapper kids that liked those too. I put all that on one kid thinking I was just going to fit in like that. Did not work. Did not work at all. They knew I was weird. But all the didn't understand clicks, Linear thinking versus abstract thinking when it comes to magic and the initiation. That's a good way to see what was going on with the two gnomes that we were talking about earlier, right? And that's even where we're at in this moment. So they kind of set you up for the idea. But in this moment, we have, you need to be sure of your purpose, go through without fear, connect to yourself, and then we have that ego death, right? Because once he steps through there, he doesn't remember who he is. He's let go of everything, and he has to be able to get through that last gate, right? He has to let go of everything. But Bastion can still guide him. Yeah? Bastion tells him to go back over to the stone. In the story, once he loses everything, he just starts wandering around happy, blissed out, and Bastion yells at him, "No, go back. Go through the gate." And this is one of the very important bits they left out of the movie. Right? This is probably one of the reasons Michael Endo was so pissed that this part was left out. When you get this far in, I can see how, I'm beginning to see how he was like, well, you've taken out so much that it's no longer has any value. He forgot this important part of the Gnosis. And that's an important bit there. Right? All of these together. Yes, exactly. His higher self, his fuller self, his impersonal daemon. I've never liked the HGA, but words, but that's because I got a thing against flap wings. Or I struggle with anything that has Christian connotations. Um, anyways, uh, yes, that is very much what is going on here. And that's part of how when we achieve Gnosis, if we're going to be hyping up ourselves into Gnosis and then doing a release moment, or even driving ourselves forward to get new knowledge, right? So, oh, you're just fine to use those words. I just don't use them myself. I have nothing against people using terms like holy guardian angel. It just doesn't resonate for me. You know, I have nothing against you using the term, and I know what you mean when you say it. So it doesn't really matter. It's just I'm not likely to quote it. Right? I'll just when we're talking about it, if you say holy guardian angel, I'm gonna be like, yeah, the higher self. When I begin thinking, when I respond, I'm just not going to use the same term. That's all. Okay. So, um, yeah, that's what is going on here. And that's where we should be in that moment. Whether we are achieving Gnosis for the, yes, that's another good term. Whether we are, so I'm going to start that one again because I went off on a drive and then I stopped. Okay. So that's what we should be doing when we are achieving Gnosis. We go through past the will, past that hump, and enter through the abyss, cross the abyss, whatever that abyss is for us, whether it's fear, analysis, paralysis, confusion, uncertainty, the not wanting to feel silly. We must cross that abyss and then connect to the highest self. And then from there, we lose ourselves, our daily self, right? Because Atreyu is the part that is gone. Atreyu does not remember he is Atreyu, but Bastion, the fullest self, is there guiding that moment forward. And we should be in a similar state when we are using Gnosis as the means to either cast a spell or to gain knowledge, which is the original word for the name, which is the original idea for the word Gnosis. Chaos magic kind of, well, we culturally appropriated that one too, I guess, right? But we are reaching forward for that knowledge, and the higher self is the part that retains the purpose of why we are there. Even the Godsmack song references this. Never did I want to come here again, and I don't remember why I came. But there's still the driving force. However that is put, because Atreyu doesn't know that Bastion just said, hey, you got to go through that wall. That's where you're here. But it's there, and Atreyu responds. And that's all that matters in that moment. If we are simply doing a release sigil where we are driving up that Gnosis, we are crossing those barriers, we are reaching that no mind state, the only thing left should be the shape of the sigil. And other than that, you allow your higher self, your actual player playing the character of you, to direct where that energy goes. And you let that moment become. You cannot drive the release of the sigil. You must ride it, right? You must let go. You must simply go into the flow and become nothing for that moment and let that magic, that purpose and intent reach out and either release to get its purpose or else find the perception that you were looking for and gain the gnosis or knowledge that you have sought in that moment, right? Because it's the same process either way, whether you are casting a sigil or attempting to remote view or even just simply gain greater knowledge of the cosmos. This process will work. This will take you to that place where you need to go. But first, you need to cross that abyss, whatever that abyss is for you. Because that's one thing that he's not really putting here, and that's one of the things that is problematic with all organized, defined versions of the occult, of the craft, is that abyss, that first gate, isn't really the same for any of us. I mean, he does say that, but he talks about that being at the second gate, the gate where we approach ourselves, and that each one of that is different. But what he doesn't understand is, or at least doesn't say in the book, and it seems like no organized versions of magic get this concept, is in that is that abyss, even if it is fear for many, is not the same fear. It is not the same thing. It is a different experience for each of us. It can be that analysis paralysis about how can I get this spell right? And maybe we can interpret all of these different things as versions of fear. Hesitance, not wanting to be silly, fear that literally you're going to invoke the wrath of Satan or Lucifer or some, depending on whatever religion you are, you're afraid you're going to piss off. Well, I'm not going to say the ones that I just thought of because certain words we're not supposed to say too much. I'm certainly not going to talk about it. Anyways, not just for demonstration. We can talk about atrocities another day. And I'm not afraid to, I'm not really afraid to speak their names, but to use them just like that in that concept, screw it. No point. Anyways, what was I saying here? Got slid off a little because I just about started talking about Wendigos. Right? And I was like, let's just leave them out of it in that context. No point in picking fights. I do have a whole video on Wendigos, though. Absolutely. We do this all the time. And that's part of, I think, why Michael Ende thought it was so important for people to be exposed to this, is to understand that we all go through this, whether it's magic or just trying to understand what you want out of life, whether you have no magical intent or not. These are the things that you need to do. Like I was talking about earlier with nihilism. And the whole point of how you discover your own nature, how you be who you are, rather than who other things have influenced you to be. Part of that is using nihilism as a tool, essentially. You ask enough whys that you eventually run out of whys and get to how. How can I do what I want? You have to strip away all value, like Nietzsche says. Like, the guy's right about some stuff. A lot of people say he was an existentialist, but I would say he was more of an absurdist. Anyways, completely off track there. He's his own thing. Don't want to get into a big sidetrack on him. So, but that is still true that you have to strip away all value, you have to strip away all meaning so that you can see the raw essence and beauty of life and see what is beautiful to you as an individual, what matters to you. How does this world interact with you? And this doesn't mean be selfish, right? There's this where even Nietzsche, this is where Nietzsche started messing up. This is where he got it wrong. Is he started making this elitism, and what matters to him is the thing that matters the most. And it's shouldn't you have to understand that it's not like that. It is cooperation. We have to see the whole picture before you've really stripped everything away. They walk away from the Gnosis too early when there is still all this scripting left, all this programming of left of being, well, in his case, a German and, whatever. But in every case, this is where they tend to get it wrong is, yes, you have to come back from that moment, but you have to stay there long enough to let everything go. You have to let everything fall away and be nothing, right? This is that moment of walking on the edge of the nothing in the way that I mean it, not in the way of the book, because he's talking about the nihilism. And yeah, actually, there you see that is part of what we're talking about. You have to confront that nothing, which is what happens in the book. Even is everything falls away. In the movie, it all falls apart, and then it is given meaning again and is rebuilt in Bastian's imagining. Right? That's what we have to do, is have that crumbling moment, have that moment where everything is nothing. But in that nothing, and it even works in the metaphorical concept of the existential crisis, in that nothing is where we find the potential for all things. Because nothing is literally impossible. If it was possible, it wouldn't be nothing. The nothing only exists because it doesn't. And so that gives us an infinite amount of creative potential. All things are possible within the nothing. That emptying of all things gives us the vessel which can contain anything. And we must, in order to be part of that, we must let go of everything and simply become part of the flow, where the only thing left is that sigil that connects you to the higher self that is casting out. Exactly. If it ever existed, then it wouldn't be nothing. Anything that exists is something. Even a void, even empty space, even lack is something. There is no emptiness in nothing. There is no cold, there is no dark, there is no lack of light, there is no shadow. There is indeed. Well, you're not staring. You shouldn't be staring at the sigil anymore, because there comes to a point where it no longer matters if your eyes are opened or closed. Yeah, you have that where everything. It's when back to the brain. It's when your brain dumps the DMT from your pineal gland, and it all just goes, and it's. Get that ego death, that falling away. You don't have to be staring at the sigil anymore. The sigil is simply a symbol in your mind that represented your intent, but the intent is gone at this point. There is simply the shape, the image. Everything else It's gone. And then even it leaves. But it is the last thing to go as you walk through that wall. Or in this point, or this state, Atreyu knew somewhere in him that he needed the information. It even talks about that in the story when he's talking to the silent voice, that it tells him the answer to his questions about about who can give the childlike empress a name. He knew he had to remember that. And the higher self guided him to that moment. It was still there. It just wasn't a thought anymore. It was simply a move, an action. And when we reach this Gnosis state, wanting to know a thing, that should be all that's left of our awareness. And even that shouldn't be a conscious thing anymore. We're just going, moving by momentum. There are many different ways to get that process going. It depends on what works for you. Some people use chanting, meditation, like staring at the sigil. One of the easiest ways, if you're able to meditate into the no mind state, which I believe from what you said earlier, I think that you can. But you picture the sigil, stare at it for a while, and then close your eyes. And as you're going into that no mind state, simply use that symbol, not the intent, not anything about the symbol, but the symbol itself as your focal point. And keep focused on that, only that, and then the shape of it. Let everything else fade away until nothing else is left. And stay focused on it as the only thing as you go into the no mind state until you've completely faded out and gone completely in the no mind state. And if once you've fully reached no mind, you don't have the sigil anymore, that's where you're supposed to be. That's what you're supposed to do. There will be a point where you lose the sigil if you do it that way, but that's the intent. Yeah, I thought so. That would probably be the easiest way for you to achieve that state. A lot of times I use ecstasy. Totes, my love. Totes, Romstead, thank you. You guys, you'll be hearing me say totes every once in a while on the lives. And the reason for that is because I'm using that as a marker, so that I can come back and find the stuff that I'm making that I've been making shorts with. I'm sure y'all have noticed most of the shorts I've been putting out have come from these lives. Okay, so that's the third gate, right? Or yeah, that's the third gate, and you talked to Uyala. I feel like there's something hidden in the names that would be a lot more interesting if I spoke German. Yeah, exactly. Actually, I was talking about how I don't like the AI, but the compute. Well, I do believe AI is good for some stuff. One of those things, it's a great example, is the AI in the Creator Studio for YouTube. They've got an AI in there now, and I can just ask it, at what timestamps do I say totes? And it'll tell me all the timestamps where I use the word totes. There you go. Or I could just search the chat, as Felix says, but for some stuff the AI is useful. But I don't feel like we need 50,000 data centers just to do that. I mean, I know it's Dunning-Kruger with me, but we're doing it right now, and there isn't 50,000 data centers yet. And it doesn't need to be smart enough to You know, they didn't need to give it a personality. It has one. They didn't need to put that in there. There's no. Anyways, doesn't matter. Point is, I do think AI is useful in some ways, but it shouldn't be directing our creativity. It is absurd. Okay, so see, Control F is friend. Indeed. Okay, so there's another very important bit here that it's an interesting place for him to put this, except for that. No, with what he's working on and what he's trying to get you to see in your moment of gnosis by identifying with Atreyu or identifying with Bastion as Atreyu becomes Bastion. The gnosis he is trying to get you to perceive in this moment is about the beauty of all things, about the litany of poetry that weaves the world together. None of this part's in the movie. None of this is in the movie. I think this is one of the parts where this is probably one of the this being not being there is probably a part of why Michael Endale was like, you know what, you've ruined the movie so much that it's just it's not even my book anymore. You know, he hated the movie so much that he actually had his name removed and fought to keep it from ever coming out. And you know, it cost himself a lot of money and fame to have had his name taken off of one of the most popular movies of all time. Oh, it's an amazing book. Oh, I forgot to put the thing. Let's get that up there again. For young adult fiction, it is amazing. You know, it is. Oh, wrong CMU. Hold on. There's actually. There we go. That's Chaos Magic Community. I need Chaos Magic for noobs of all levels. Oh, come on. What is going on here? Oh, flipping daughter. There we are. A bunch of new Chaos Magic groups. That's interesting. Okay. I'm supposed to be pinning this every Wednesday. I often forget. This is a link to where you can get. What? It's never told me that before. Weird. Maybe I'm not going to be providing that link this time. Oh, let's see. Well, that's screwy. I've done this every other live. What is going on here? Flap duelets. Okay, it's been weird to me today. Try one more time. That is annoying as heck. I've posted that link before. It's a link to the yeah, it says permalink right there. Okay, the technology is technology. But if you go back to Let's try this one more time, and then we'll. Oh, that is just screwy. Okay, so I am not going to be able to provide a link today for some reason. Don't know what's going on with that. But if you go back to any of the other lives, if you want to, there is a link to the Facebook group. That's a public Facebook group where I provide a link to the PDF that I am reading from. Because unfortunately, I am skirting copyright stuff, you know? It's actually a very hard book to get a copy of these days. You can buy it on Amazon, but it's pricey. Very good book, though, especially for a young adult fiction. The movie really did do it a disservice. It is actually quite true. Okay, so while I'm off subject, Felix caught a salmon yesterday. That was pretty cool. Okay, so where were we? I can add that last bit of whiskey just yet. Yeah. So we were talking about Ouya. Oh yes, the law of aesthetics. And you know, it's an interesting place for him to bring it up. Is here, but that is the gnosis that he wants you to achieve. That he wants you to get. That's the knowledge he wants to provide you. I'm very proud of you for having caught a salmon, love. They're a much harder fish to land than the rockfish we've been landing. You did a good job. You managed to pull it right into the kayak and everything. Proud is the word, not excited. I'm excited, yes, but I'm proud. I'm, you know, your first salmon, and yes, you fished a little bit before we started fishing together, but I feel like I've kind of been like teaching you how to fish, even though you've mostly been figuring it out on your own. In all honesty, I mean, yeah, I kind of taught you some stuff about fishing, but you've definitely developed your own strategy at this point, anyways. So, anyways, back to the book. It's enough about my religion and my spreading my religion to my spouse. Yeah, back to the book and discussion on spirituality. All right, here we go. Here's the difference, in my opinion. Anyways, the law of aesthetics is what he's talking about here. The fact that the world is woven by words and a litany of poetry. And, you know, Uyala is what do I want to say here? She's the Akashic record in a way. She's the one that answers questions. She's the place of knowledge and information. And she can only hear things in poetry. She can only hear things that rhyme, that have meter and meaning, right? And that's what he's talking about. It's the same thing I'm always talking about how things need to groove, things need to resonate, they have to flow within the pattern. This is the one thing that I'm sure the all thing as a not conscious, but it has a way to it. This thing that we could kind of call God, and its will is only that one thing. That thing must flow within its aesthetic. Everything goes as myth and story and poetry and wonder. And it just has an inherent poetry to it. That's why I have what I have left. In fact, if I'm like actually in a thing where I'm trying to sense what's around and feel different wind currents and all kinds of different things, I actually do that. And I look crazy as heck. But yes, in my opinion, there is definitely a sensory thing going on with long hair. It's part of the reason I have such a strange haircut, because my hair is falling out on the sides or on the top here, and I didn't want to look like a hula hoop, a bowling ball in a hula skirt. So I've been so I shaved the sides off. But part of it is that feeling of a sensory. I feel vulnerable without some long hair. I do feel like it helps me sense. But also, every time I've ever cut it, something in my blood demands to know where my pride is. And so I keep it long. You know, there's only been a few times in my life I've not had some kind of hair hanging off the back of my head. Like in the 8th grade, after I tried the John Connor haircut with all long on the one side, short the rest. Since I'd already cut the rest of it short, I went ahead and did like the bowl cut thing that was popular at the time, and that didn't work. Everyone still knew I was a weirdo. And then I gave up on fitting in 9th grade, I suddenly had a few friends. 10th grade, I went from being the one nobody liked, like 10th grade's high school in Utah. Suddenly, everybody thought I was so awesome because my family smoked pot, and I talked like an extra from a Cheech and Chong movie. And, like all the things that weren't cool about me suddenly were. Like you'd think the stoner kids would have thought I was cool before that, but I don't know. I don't know how exactly that all worked out. All I know is 10th grade, I go to high school, a tie-dye t-shirt and a suit in a briefcase. And I go from, well, I mean, actually, it's a lot like this moment of crossing the Sphinx. I'd gotten to that point where I didn't give a crap if any of them liked me or not. And I'd just given up on them all. You know, like, well, you people suck anyways. And I took that attitude, and suddenly everyone at suddenly I get to high school, and I'm like suddenly one of the popular kids. Didn't want to be, and I was kind of well, I wouldn't say I was a dick about it, because like I didn't go around being, oh, I'm Mr. Popular, da da da. I just didn't fully accept that I was popular, and didn't feel really weird when kids talk to me, especially since I didn't know how to have I certainly didn't know how to do this. No, I mean, this isn't exactly small talk, but I didn't know how to have conversations. So when people come up and try to talk to me, it was very awkward. I actually would have almost preferred being a little less popular in high school. Yeah, I mean, this is very true. Because the only time I ever really tried to be popular, though, or like normal and fit in, was the 8th grade. And like I was saying earlier, you know, I had the John Connor haircut, but then I also had the color changing shirt like all the preppy kids wore. And then I had the MC Hammer pants and the flashing shoes. I had all the clicks in one kid. And it did not work. Oh, that's probably a bit risque for YouTube. But I have a pretty funny story about me wearing the MC Hammer pants. Anyways, if you haven't liked the video or whatever, I'm going to go ahead and do a plug now. If you haven't liked the video, please take the opportunity to like it now. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to subscribe. I think most of you are the people that we see every week, so I'm pretty sure y'all are subscribed by now. But if it happens to be someone hanging out in the back that hasn't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. We do this every week. Saturdays, we talk about, well, whatever I feel like talking about that week. And I'm thinking about doing a thing on Tuesdays, but that will just be whenever I feel like. The Sorcerer Tal's Tuesday tirade. And that'll be whatever is pissing me off that week. That sounds kind of fun. Start whenever I feel like it. Happen whenever if I feel like it. If I don't, it won't. Tuesday will be a little different. Anyways, we'll see about that one. Whichever Tuesday it starts, or some other day of the week. I'll call it Tuesday's tirade, anyways, because that's how that one's going to be. Okay. So yeah, there's the poetry that's involved in every moment, and that's the understanding that he takes back, that he expects us to take back with us, and that we can, in that poetry, with the power of that poetry, is how we have, within the flow of that poetry, is what gives us the power to create Fantasia by giving the childlike empress a name. Right? In the book, when we get to it, they have no way to obscure what he said. That's one thing they got right in the movie, was nobody can tell what Bastion is yelling out the window, what he names the childlike empress cannot be heard. In the book, he handles that a little differently, but it has a similar idea to it. It gets you to think of a name yourself, right? And there's some other meanings that he puts in that as well. There's other symbolism on top of that. But part of it is to make you essentially think, well, that's an odd thing to name her. I would have named her this. Right? And that's why in the movie, why you don't get to hear it, why they don't want you to hear what the name is because they want you to put one in its place. They at least got that part right. Oh, Johnston, I cried the first time I cut that time in the 8th grade when I cut the last of it short, I was just frustrated, and I knew I was going to need to cut it short to grow it out again anyways. So we'll just put it in a bowl cut, and then I'll grow it back out. And that's essentially what happened. And then I had long hair pretty much until it all fell out. I cried. I cried when I got in the shower and went like that. Didn't feel nothing. First time that happened. But I try to keep it always long in the back. I have given up and cut it off a few times. And then I used to do a tail. Basically a big, it's not really a dreadlock. And I don't know what I don't know what it would be called, but it's just like a hippie wrap. I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. Every membership really helps the channel, helps me get better equipment and helps me justify spending more of my time doing this that I could be spent trying to make money other places. You know what I mean? Because unfortunately, I do have to chop wood and carry water. And if I can make as much of this channel being my chop wood and carry water as possible, then the more I'm able to be here. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyways. Yeah, there's the poetry in the moment. And that's different for each one of us. We all have our own story. We are all a creation of a mythology. And we can live our lives in metaphorical ways, even. And this is, I'm not sure how to say that one without putting it in metaphor myself. So we're going to leave that for when I write the book, write a book with Joshua Wittershins over there. We're going to collab book. Because he's connected to my idea of Atreyu and Bastion, right? Like he's somewhere in between. If I was Atreyu and my higher self is Bastion, which I don't know why I keep avoiding saying his name, because I actually have a name for him. I used to call him Fred back in the day, but I also didn't understand he and I were the same being exactly at first. Like that was a revelation I was kind of led to over time. But his name isn't actually Fred, it's Yarvo. Yarvo, words are used there, it means friend. So friend, Fred. But also in my last life, my name was Frederick Freiman. So there's that. Like my life just before this one, the one that OD'd on LSD in a park in San Francisco in 1973. Anyways, and that's like I suppose in a lot of ways, people are concerned with like the idea of people knowing their true names or whatever. Maybe that's why I tend to hesitate saying that name, but I have been encouraged to spread my name out there because people knowing your name, hearing your name also brings you more into this world, right? Because that's part of what we are trying, like ultimately by getting everyone through this process. In a way you could say we are building Fantasia, rebuilding Fantasia ourselves. That's what it is that we're up to. And the more we rebuild Fantasia, the more it is the closer it gets to our own world, and the more of an overlap there becomes between the two. Or in other words, trying to bring about the return of magic and creating an overlap, the overlap that is supposed to be there between the astral, mental, and material planes, because the actual reality where life takes place should be at the very center of that pyramid, right? If you picture the mental, astral, and physical planes, material plane, as points on a pyramid, perception and reality itself should be taking place exactly balanced in the center. But instead, you know what? Hold on just a second. We're going to do a thing. I want to get rid of all this other stuff in here that I've been working on before I bring y'all over here. Go on, spoilers for future thumbnails. I'll leave that one up because y'all have seen that one today. Okay. Well, actually, there wouldn't have been any spoilers for future thumbnails, just spoilers for how old thumbnails had been created. Anyways. Totes. I'm not sure what we're saying it for, but just in case we need to find this one. Sure. I did say some cool stuff just a moment ago, I guess. Anyways, oh hey, we'll go ahead and preview real quick while I'm over here, but I'm off track. Could magic work in competitive arm wrestling? It's an interesting question. We could let me think about that for a moment. There are ways that could work. Okay, but I wanted to do a thing here. So now we're going to share the screen over to. Can I not go to the paint thing? Oh, window. There we are. Okay, so I'm not very good at this kind of thing, but we're going to try this anyways. Say this black line here. Actually, no, we need to make points. Each one of these forms a triangle, and just pretend it's balanced because it's not going to be. And then we need shapes. Fill the shape of that line, I guess. Size is 8, okay. Oh, that's a square. Rectangle. I wanted a circle. Okay. So this circle with the say yellow center. Say the yellow circle is the astral plane. And we get another circle, same size art. Where the heck is brown on here? There we go. Good enough. That's the material plane there. And then we'll do, actually, let's say the yellow one's the mental plane. Physical. Why am I being silly? Okay. And then a red one over here. Doesn't really matter what colors they are. We're gonna be better to have the astral plane at the top, mental plane down here, and the material plane down here. Now, where we're supposed to be is right in the center here, right? Where we are in balance between all three. If you're gonna enjoy the book at all, you'd have to watch. It's just sorry, I can't actually see what you guys are saying while I'm over there. So what drawing program software is that? It's paint.net. It's really not a very good one, but it works. Would you recommend reading the book or watching the movie first? If you're going to enjoy the movie at all, you'd have to do it first. We're going to be doing it the other way around. Like we'll see what we can do about that. But I would like to find some way for us all to possibly maybe watch the movie together even. We'll see how that goes, what I can do about that. Obviously, I can't play the movie on YouTube. If that was to happen, it would have to happen somewhere off of YouTube. Okay, so here in the middle, we have where things are supposed to be. And where we are, why did I do that? Is like somewhere along this line between the mental plane and the material world. We're like not totally focused on the material world, but like probably like up here somewhere. But we think we're here. right? We think we're totally focused on just the physical world, but we're not. We're focused on this idea of the material world that is out here somewhere. So we're drawn somewhere all the way over onto this line. And we're supposed to be here. Anyways, I don't know why I felt that was so important to go through all that just to show you that with the triangles, but that's that. Okay. Yeah, like I said, it's paint.net. I forget where I got it from, but it's acceptable. Speaking as a total Luddite, I am definitely not highly skilled in these areas. Okay. So, where were we? Oh wow, 2.5 hour mark. I think I have pretty much covered everything I have to say about the about this week's books. Like I said, we'll next week we're gonna read 3 again. We're going to read the Wind Giants, Spook City, and the Flight to the Ivory Tower. Once again, at the beginning, I will summarize all 3, and then we will discuss them. I don't remember much about these chapters the last time I read through, really. Not off the top of my head, except for the Flight to the Ivory Tower. The second hand of the book, though, is all about shadow work, essentially. We'll be getting to that first. We'll be getting to that next, not first. And that's the part that they actually did do a second movie to handle the second part of the book. But it came out 6 years later, and I don't remember it very well at all. And I'm pretty sure that it didn't do much of the stuff from the second part of the book. But it's an important part of the whole thing. Like I was saying before, when they left us hanging like that, there was enough there to put us in that mindset a little, but then not take us back down. So then you have a whole bunch of people growing up too obsessed with belief imparts reality, and then they start believing in the mundane. They start believing in this supposed common sense of adulting, even though they've been even after being shown that, and it puts them to where they're able to pretend the world isn't beautiful, put imagery over top of things that, this is what it's supposed to be, so I don't actually see these things, and convince themselves. I mean, belief does impart reality, right? That's an important thing, but that leaves you up on the mountain just a little bit, and not actually practical. Because as much as belief imparts reality, there is a base reality that we're imparting upon. And that base reality, whether we like it, whether that's what we're focused on, it's still at the center of that triangle that I just showed you. Right? It is simply our perception of reality that's been pulled off over here. And a lot of us, we're not all the way over on that line still. We're coming back this way. But we have to understand is that it's an interconnected community of consciousnesses that we are all connected to, right? The cosmic consciousness, the collective unconscious of all humanity as well, And as much as we ourselves may perceive perfectly in the middle, the collective consciousness, the mental map that we exist within is pulled askew. You know, the only way to escape that is to go live off in the mountains all by yourself. And even then, you haven't escaped it. You're simply on the edge of it. You can only get as far as that edge. And you can get as far as that edge without that, really. But it's easier to pretend you've escaped it if you're isolated by yourself. If Unfortunately, we're doing it in the opposite order, but if you're going to enjoy the movie much at all, you probably should see it before you read the book. Because the movie massacres the book. The more I'm reading through it the second time, the more I'm realizing that, yeah, Michael Ende had a right to be pissed about what they had done to his book. I still think he should have, I don't know, shouldn't have done anything that caused the second one to be delayed by 6 years. And also, he could have written more books off the popularity that he would have gained from this. You know, he could have been another J.K. Rowling type figure and got people to read the books more. You know, use the movie to draw people to the books. I feel like he made a mistake, but you know, different priorities, different concerns. But he did affect an entire generation of people in a strange way by allowing us to be trapped up on the mountain like that. And he talks, and that's the funny part about it, is the whole second half of the book is about the perils of staying in that moment. You know, that's like I said, the second book, we're going to be talking a lot about shadow work. But that's also why the second movie was nowhere near as popular. That's certainly part of it, is because people don't like to be confronted with that. Right? But yeah, Rumble, live stream, maybe, something like that. I'll look into it. Oh, on the same note, I haven't done anything with it yet, but I do have a Patreon now. I had one for a while, but I accidentally, it asked me, I thought it was asking if I wanted, what I wanted to do with the channel. Yeah, we're still here for a bit longer. You did miss the book club. Essentially, we're all done with that for the night, but we haven't hit the 3-hour mark. We got another 22 minutes. Oh, happy birthday! Very cool. That deserves a cash cow emoji at least. Oh, there's another eclipse tomorrow as well. Lunar eclipse. Right on. There have been a lot of eclipses and stuff over, definitely here recently, but also over the last couple of years. There seems to be a real uptick in astronomical phenomena. I think I said that right. Not sure why that reminded me. But there's something else that should certainly be mentioned tonight. And that is the passing of Dolly Parton and Tim Curry. Neither one of them were Um, well, I think Dolly Parton certainly understood some of the things about glamour magic. You know, they say that people never recognized her in public. And it's because she had such a character. People say that stuff about Marilyn Monroe, but Dolly Parton, they say that. Well, I guess they say the same thing about her. The eclipses usually have a string of celebrity deaths. I remember quite a few years ago. Oh, that was exactly during the same time of one of the big eclipses, because I went down there to Las Vegas to go to well, I went there for a few other reasons that I shouldn't. Well, it says I say Las Vegas, and it makes it sound like it's something dirty. So I'll just go ahead and say it this far into the live. I went there to try some DMT, and also for one of the an eclipse party, like a drum circle thing. I was like jumping around and hooting. It's fun as heck. I had a really great time. I skipped all the way up and all the way down the giant hill they had, whatever that place is called. It was fun. I had a great night. Skipping down giant desert hills is a lot of fun. Okay, go and drop the rest of this in. And for once, I was smart and ate before the live. Oh, there were some questions. Okay, what was the meaning of the triangle drawing? Oh, I was talking about. Here, we can go back over there for just a moment, actually. Window. What's going on here? Hold on. I can't figure out how to do it now. Oh, that's probably why. Okay, now that I have that up, let's try that again. Window. There we are. Okay, so what I was saying about this was this inner circle here is where reality is supposed to be. If this was... Okay, let's just start this over again because it's easier, because it doesn't matter where any one of these 3 points is, but they're supposedly all supposed to be the same size and balanced. You just have to pretend that's the case. And then I'm going to make some small circles. That's we note each one again. Some shapes, circles. Drop the size down to like 2. Oh, that's what that controls. Okay. So, I'm going to need the color wheel again. So if this first one here, which I'm about to put a black dot on, we're going to say this one's the astral plane, because that just makes the visual just works out better that way. So this one's the astral plane. This one with a blue dot is the material plane. And the one with the yellow dot is the mental realm. Right? And this is where we're supposed to be. This is what if balanced, right? In the center. I was just coming over here real quick to make sure I hadn't missed any important questions. Okay. So This is the where we're supposed to be. Now, because of the way things have worked out in this world, programming, etc., we have been taught that the world is in a particular way, but it's not the way that we think it is, right? They've made a map and spent centuries convincing us all that this map is the territory. So much so that we will stumble over things in the real world because they don't fit the map. And this is like, well, why we even do things like the placebo effect, why they insist the placebo effect proves magic isn't real instead of realizing that it actually is the proof that magic is real. Faith healing works by the power of faith, and even like ritual, right? There's ritual that goes into healing, and sometimes the ritual alone, even if you give the person a sugar pill, will heal that person. This is proof that magic works, not proof that it doesn't. Okay, and even like the Easter Island, they finally know how the statues got to Easter Island. They figured it out. They quit trying to figure it out and believe the people that lived there when they told them what it was. But up until that moment, they couldn't understand that because the map told them they were superior. And these people couldn't possibly know their own history. They're just savages. So they had to see past the map to find the territory and finally believe the guys that told them, hey, we walked them down there, and understand how that works. They got ropes on them and walked them. Either way, all that noise, all that garbage gets us down here, right? Like if this is the material plane and this is the mental plane, if we were just focused on what's actually common sense, we'd be over here somewhere. Like, or not common sense, but just on the mundane, we'd actually be over here somewhere. And you'll notice we actually, in some ways, start getting like a touch of the astral coming in at that point, but we're farther away from the mental plane. But that's not where we are. We're over here. We're not completely focused on the territory. Territory, map. Right? And that's actually kind of how that works. The territory, the material realm, the mental plane, the map. And we're like over here, completely off balance and pulled way far away from the astral plane, which was the point, to keep us away from that higher self that is up here on the astral plane. Keep us away from that connection of the self so that our will can be pulled into that one will of a particular being, which in this case was Jihad, that was trying to essentially hold our perception in this area hostage, have us as a hostage, as a captive audience in this part of our perceptions, because his whole thing isn't about doing things here as much as he has to control this. He had needed to affect this world to do it. We were just a battery. The real concern, the real conflict goes on closer to the center of the all thing as to whether the world should be full of free will or essentially slowly returned to the entropy of order. Or whatever you want to call that, slowly cease, grind down, and become motionless and under control of one thing. Anyways, so we're down here. We're supposed to be here. I mean, even if we were up here, that would be a bad thing. At least not in your daily life. This is where we should be. And this is where reality should be. Right here in the center, because that's where it actually is taking place. This is where the base reality takes place. But our perception, our thinking of what reality is pulled way far to this misconception of the material plane. We think we're looking right here. We think we're over here. But obviously, we can't actually be all the way in one realm. We're actually way far over believing the map is the territory. Extremely far from the astral plane itself, to the point where we can't remember anything from life to life, barely. Okay. Why didn't he put his name on it? He didn't put his name on the movie because he felt it was so far from his creation. He says basically that they Disneyfied it. He didn't use the word Disneyified, but his whole thing was like, well, you've made it cutesy. You've made it quiche. You've made it this campy. They took his young adult fiction and made it into a kid's story without keeping a whole lot of that subplot, that trick. Oh, it's a beautiful movie. I love it. It was a huge part of my childhood, and it holds up. Watching it, it's still a very good movie. But it didn't have all the elements he felt like it needed to drive us to that point of gnosis and understanding that he was trying to get us to achieve. He didn't feel that it still had the point of what it was he was trying to do. So I would say he definitely said it was made cutesy and that it had lost all meaning. But to me, his concern was that it didn't have all the priming in the background to have you in the right state to begin watching the to be open to the message he is trying to put in these children's minds as they read the book. Because you're intended to read this book when you're like 12 years old, right? I mean, I was a lot younger than that when this movie came out, if I remember correctly. It was like 84 or something. I would have been like 5, which sounds about right. Yeah. If you want to see the one where if you want to hear about all this stuff that I read about Michael Ende, or it's German, and the E's got one of them things over it, I think. But yes, I believe so. I think like 19 set here. I can look real quick. Actually, it says at the top of this. Right here in front of the book somewhere. Oh, that's the illustration there. Oh, 1979. Translation 1983. So it's a 70s book, just barely. It hadn't been around for very long when it came out as a movie. I just looked that up real quick too. It's because it's interesting. What year did the Never-Ending Story movie come out? Oh, I was asking the AI. Never say never. Oh, stupid. The Never-Ending Story movie come out. There, not the AI. I don't want the AI. I guess I can let the AI answer that one. 1984. Hey, I was right. Kind of thought so. Okay. Well, I haven't actually done an intermission this whole 3 hours, and I'm starting to get to where I could use one, but we're just about over. So actually, I can wait. Indeed. Well, I mean, there's some magical lessons to be learned in Puff the Magic Dragon as well, though. You know, I think the important one to learn from Puff the Magic Dragon, though, is not to stop not to abandon your imaginary friends, but keep them. Well, I mean, my imaginary friend left though. You know, my imaginary when I was a kid, my imaginary friend was Shoeshine from like Underdog, right? The cartoon. Like literally, I saw it Underdog, but I called him Shoeshine, and he was around when I was a kid. Sometimes he would look kind of like a blue healer or something, but anyways, when I was about 7 or 8 years old, somewhere around there, he comes to me one day and he tells me he's moving to Australia to live with his cousins, the dingoes. And I've never seen him since. I feel like maybe I don't know what that was, but I certainly had a spirit, something, I guess it was, I don't know. But I didn't quit believing in him. I never have quit believing in him. He moved. Moved to Australia to live with his cousins, the dingoes. Well, I mean, he came and said goodbye at least. I was pretty sad about it. I think it was around the same time that my friend Andrew, who was a bit older than me, was from Australia, moved away. It was good having an older friend when I was that age because I was able to get a lot far. I was able to roam a lot farther from home just because I had this friend that he was like 12 or something, like somewhere around there. He was old enough he could go to I could like leave the trailer park with him even and go places. But I think he just didn't have any friends because he had a really thick Australian accent and people were weird back then. And he figured hanging out with me was better than having nobody to hang out with. I don't know. But my mom had let me go all the way to the pond, which was outside of the trailer park, as long as I had him with me. And I almost fell out of my chair. Maybe that was enough whiskey. And that's where the rose tree was growing that this staff comes from, or rose bush. It was already growing there at that point, too. That's how you get a piece of rose. That's how you get a stick from a rose bush that's like this. So very sad they cut it down. I did not cut that down. The damn city came along and cut it down one day. Yeah. But I mean, you can't blame him. A lot of kids forget their imaginary friends. Even the story of Puff the Magic Dragon actually ends pretty tragically with when Jackie Paper stops coming to see Puff. Pete's Dragon's a little different. I think Pete stopped. I don't think Pete's ever actually. Oh, I can't remember. I remember Pete's Dragon, but I can't remember the story at all. Like I definitely remember seeing it. Oh, okay. Real but invisible. All right. Yeah, and then there was a lot of imaginary friend stuff. Like even on Sesame Street when I was a kid, Snuffleupagus. If you probably remember this too, I would imagine. Snuffleupagus wasn't. No one could see Snuffleupagus, but Big Bird. Not because he was invisible, but because he was never there at the same time as anyone else, and he kept trying to show people, and he'd always be gone. And everyone thought he was his imaginary friend. It would drive me crazy. And then finally, there was an episode where he finally meets everybody. But then there's also Harvey, like way back, the invisible bunny that Oh, I don't remember the name of the movie. Maybe the movie was named Harvey, but it had that "It's a Wonderful Life" guy in it. Yeah, and he actually, I think in the movie, actually calls him a puka, if I remember correctly, which is a type of spirit often associated with Beltane's shapeshifter, but is also often thought of as a rabbit. Harvey is also the name of my pet rock, which is an homage to that Harvey. I have a pet rock named Harvey who likes to get stoned. I found him when I was on my walkabout, actually. I was just walking along and I saw this rock. And it's about the shape and size of a cell phone. So I don't know if that's what appealed to me about it. But I picked up that rock and I couldn't put it down. And I've carried it with me everywhere since. It's here in Canada with me. I don't have it in the room. Like it's upstairs because I like to have it in my where I sleep. Donnie Darko, Drop Dead Fred was another one that come out. It was about a imaginary friend and actually about reconnecting with your imaginary friend as an adult. That was a fun one. Drop Dead Fred was great. Little Monsters, yeah. There was a lot of good stuff. There was a lot of this idea from like in our generation of the power of imagination. You know, it was a constant theme, really. All right, I'm gonna take just a quick intermission. I feel like we can keep going for a bit longer, but I'm gonna need to do an intermission if we're gonna do that. Be right back. Okay, I have returned. Hook. Oh yes. Oh, I really enjoyed Hook, and that's another one. Is very much about the idea of Drop Dead Fred and that one, Hook, are both about the idea of returning to the power of childhood as an adult. Right, but even a lot of our kids shows were like that was the whole point of in a lot of ways. Like Christopher Robin, it was very obvious that these are the stories of a kid playing with his stuffed animals in the woods behind his house. You know, but just there was a lot of this discussion of this focus on the power of imagination when we were kids. And I mean, I'm not saying that was it was a good thing. It definitely was a good thing. It's important to understand that. But just like with the never-ending story, all of these tend to leave us on the top of the mountain and don't get us back down to chop wood, carry water. They end on the feel-good note, which is beautiful. We enjoyed the feel-good note. There's nothing wrong with that, most of them don't have that come down, that remembering that we are all the center of the universe, not just you. And that as much as belief imparts reality, there's still a base reality that we are imparting that belief onto. And then the irony of us as a generation, them being kind of silenced and crushed into mediocrity and mundanity. Like, they told us we could be anything and then wouldn't let us be anything. They told us we could be anything and then wouldn't let us be anything. That we, I feel like there's a beautiful way to say that, but we're the first generation where they told us if we followed the rules, we'd get everything we wanted. And just we can be it. They told you we could be anything. They told us we could be anything we wanted, and then they ripped our wings off the next day. And they expect us, and then they expect us to go climb into a cubicle and fit in the box. And eventually they took the cubicle away. Outsourced that to India, and now it's all AI. I used to be one of those inbound customer service people. I was the person you'd yell at when your direct TV bill was wrong at one point. That was a good job. We're graveyard shifts. I get a call once. I get a couple calls an hour, and other than that, I just sit there reading a book and making enough money to have an apartment and have fun on the weekends. Occasionally do stuff. But at the same time, I hate sitting in a cubicle. But as far as jobs went, it wasn't bad. We get a lot of drunk people calling to order their porno at night. That's what most of it was. On the hour, every hour, you get a few people calling to order some porno, or sometimes someone. Sometimes people want to argue about their bill at 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes they're usually drunk too, but it was actually worse being infomercials. Remember the infomercials? I suppose infomercials probably basically don't exist anymore. But back in the infomercial days, for a while, I was one of the people that when you actually call that number, you might have got me. No matter what number it was you called, that was the crazy part about it. Like when the infomercials were going, I had a job doing that, a graveyard shift, and I'd just be sitting there at night in my cubicle, and I wouldn't know what you were calling for until the screen popped up. It might be Girls Gone Wild. It might be the Book of Mormon. Either one of those you called, you're gonna walk to the same guy. Yeah, I should get going too. Good night, Uni Griffin. Sweet dreams. And enjoy your birthday. Okay. So we have hit the 3 hour mark at this point. I don't think I really have too much more to say. I think we're going to go ahead and call it ourselves. I think I'm going to go ahead and call it. So, until next time, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.